Probably the best way. How many people know who Steve Prefontaine is? All right. Coach Sullivan is Prefontaine of Canada. Okay. He's got almost all the national records, or clinging to a few more than some of them have been dipped out, but he's got all the records. Kevin was a sub 4-minute miler in high school. Okay. There were only 3 Americans who had done it at the time. We have actually a whole video of him running that race and beating some of my collegiate athletes in that race that went out to run it. College guys came over there and provided targets for it. He broke the 4-minute mile in high school, went on to the University of Michigan, and had an unbelievable career. I don't know how many NCAA titles, but my favorite Kevin Sullivan story is I had a miler who had just finished last at the national championship. He was hanging his head, and he goes, "Oh, cross country sucks, man. I'm a miler." And he goes to Coach Sullivan, he goes, "Sullivan, you know what I'm talking about." And Coach Sullivan said to my uninformed miler, "Yeah, I ran 4 national championships in cross country. The lowest I finished was 6th. Okay? So he's pretty good. And top 6 all those years. That's pretty good for a miler running 10K. I think Kevin was 5th in the Olympic Games in Barcelona. Sydney, where you 8 years later. I'm aging him into my category. In Sydney, Kevin was 5th in the Olympic final in 1,500 meters. He's one of the fastest non-Africans ever in the history of miling. Okay? So we got that going. Anyway, Coach Sullivan, a year or so ago, and his partner Nate Brandon, who's also an Olympian from Canada, opened up a store in town. It's a running specialty store that we sorely needed in Tallahassee. And that's what he's doing now. He still runs, not 348 miles anymore, but still runs. So he's going to give you a nice presentation. He knows what he's talking about, so pay attention. Coach Sullivan.
So today, and last year, if you were here, I talked a little bit about my high school career and how I got to running that sub 4-minute mile. We're going to kind of move a little bit into what I'm doing now, which is selling running shoes. I've got a little bit of experience with it because I've been running for 20 years, so I've got an idea about what works and what doesn't work. We're going to give you kind of some information, because there's a lot of information out there about shoes and about new fads that are going on, and there's a lot of misinformation out there too. So my job is to try and educate, runners, whether they're elite, beginners, somewhere in between, help you guys stay healthy, be in the right shoes. Typically, the biggest reason that we find for injuries are people are in the wrong type of shoe for the way they run. And everybody's unique in the way their foot is, their biomechanical gait cycle, and so it's really important to individualize the shoe for each person. You can't just go on whatever the newest fad is, whatever you happen to read in Runner's World this month. You really need to take the time to educate yourself on what the best shoe is for your particular foot and your particular running style. So the best way to do that is through a gait analysis. What a gait analysis is, that there's various degrees of gait analysis. You can go to there's a number of places around the country that you can go to and get a full biomechanical analysis done. It costs you like $200-300, and they'll tell you everything you want to know. They'll give you all the different angles that you're at when you're running. For women, they'll give you all your cue angles. They're going to, it's going to be really in depth. Ours is a little bit more basic, just because we're trying to help customers and not have them spend 2 or 3 hours in the store. We want to try and get them in the right shoe while minimizing the amount of time that they need to spend in there. So basically what we do, and Bob kind of touched on it a little bit, is we've got a treadmill in our store. And what we do is we put everybody in a neutral shoe, and I'll talk about the different categories of shoes in a minute. But we put everybody in a shoe that we're going to be able to see what their foot does through the gait cycle. We put you on the treadmill. We've got a webcam set up at the back of the treadmill, and we'll have you run for 15, 20, 30 seconds while we're filming you from about the top down. At that point, you jump off the treadmill. We get it up on, we've got a big screen in the store. We get it up on the big screen. We slow it down. We look at it frame by frame. And what we look at is we look at what your foot does from the time your heel strikes until the time time you toe off. And most people will strike on kind of the back of their heel. There are a small segment of the population that tend to be more forefoot runners, a little bit more efficient, but for the most part we see people striking farther back in the midfoot or the rear foot. So most people are going to strike back on their heel, roll off on the toes. We're looking at what your foot does, the amount of roll it has from the time you strike until the time you toe off. If we wanted to get really detailed in it, we'd have a camera set up at the back, we'd have a camera set up at the side as well. But we just don't have the time and the resources to really kind of get that in depth with things. That's something where to 5 mechanics to have something like that done. And it's going to be a little bit more in depth. So basically, what we're looking for what your foot does through the gait cycle. And so, like I was saying, for the most part, most people when they strike, they're going to land somewhere on this back portion on the outside of their heel. And from that point, we have a natural roll inward, which is called pronation. And most people's feet are going to roll inwards. So you strike on the outside of your foot, you roll inwards, and then you toe off. What we want to see the degree of roll that you have in your foot. So there's a small segment of the population that are under pronators or what's called supination. Which is on your sheet there, there's a little spelling mistake, but it's called supination. What a supinator does is they'll land on the outside of their foot, and as I said, they're under pronator, so that means that they're really not rolling inwards. They tend to stay on the outside of their foot. If you look at the bottom of their shoe, you'll see the wear pattern where they start wearing off the sole all the way on the outside of the forefoot of their shoe. It's a really small segment of the population. Only about 5% of the population are supinators. The biggest percent of the population are what we call overpronators. And what they do is they land on the outside of their foot. They roll to this position where this would be a neutral position where they come off evenly off the forefoot. What they do is they continue to roll, and they roll inwards, and they're going to come off mainly off the big toe. The highest percentage of the population does this, where they roll past the neutral point, come off the big toe. What this does is it puts a lot of pressure. Now, the big toe is designed to take a lot of force, but at the same time, it does put a lot of stress on different areas of your body. So one, when you come off that big toe, it's going to put a lot of pressure on one part of your plantar fascia, your arch. So it's going to put a lot of pressure up to the inside part of your arch. It's going to put a lot of force on the Achilles tendon. It also puts a lot of force on the shin and a lot of force on the patella tendon. So if you have any issues where you have shin splints, where you have plantar fasciitis, where you have patella tendonitis, there's a good chance you might be an overpronator. And there's a good chance you might not be in the right shoe. A lot of people will tell you that it's overtraining or things like that, but the first thing you need to look at is what kind of footwear you're in. A lot of times that can be the first thing you need to do to correct some of these issues. Now, mentioning a neutral foot strike. Neutral foot strike is what we try to get everybody as close to as possible. So what we want to see people doing is we want to see people coming off evenly off the front of that foot as possible. What that does is it distributes the force pretty evenly across the whole forefoot, rather than putting the force on the outside of the foot for supinators or on the inside of the big toe for that overpronator. So ideally what we want to see when we get somebody in the treadmill is coming off evenly like that. If you're coming off in a supinator or off a pronator, then we're going to look at a couple of different types of shoes to get you in, but hopefully get you closer to that neutral position. So the basic makeup of the shoe, that's kind of your traditional running shoe. This isn't your minimalist shoe or anything like that. It's your basic run-of-the-mill shoe. First thing you've got the outsole here. This is usually a blown rubber outsole. It's going to be the most durable part of the shoe. And one mistake a lot of people do is they kind of wait until they see this really starting to wear before they think about changing their shoes out. And like I said, this is the most durable part of the shoe. This will last somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere up to about 1,000 miles you get on this before it really starts to break down. The part that breaks down the shoe first is the white foam you see here. EVA foam.